After a tie in the United States presidential election, the outcome hinges on a single man's vote, turning the small town in New Mexico into the center of national attention. Welcome back to Movies Explained. Today's film is a 2008 comedy drama titled Swing Vote. The movie begins in the small town of Texaco, New Mexico, where teenage Molly Johnson and her classmates learn about federal politics in the lead up to the election. Bright and intelligent, Molly has become increasingly aware of local and social issues. In this regard, she is the exact opposite of her divorced father, Bud Johnson. Bud Johnson is a heavy drinker who lives in a double-wide trailer with his daughter Molly. He is somewhat careless and disorganized, often struggling to find work as he is usually drunk or recovering from a hangover. His wife Larissa left him to pursue an ill-fated singing career, leaving Molly to take care of Bud and herself. Later, Bud is driving his daughter Molly to school when he asks about his lunch and seems bummed out to find out that it's an egg salad yet again. Molly reminds him that it's election day today and that she's supposed to do a report on his voting. However, Bud claims he's not even registered, so voting is not in the cards. The mature and responsible daughter, who is trying to keep her father on track, tells him that she registered for him by mail. But Bud is still very opposed to the idea. Just before arriving at the school, Molly asks Bud to sign a questionnaire about his views on current politics, which Molly has already filled out to make him sound smart. However, since Bud is very persistent, she asks him the first question, which Bud answers incorrectly. In contrast to Bud, Molly has strong political interests and tries to convince him to cast an independent ballot in the presidential race by reminding him that it's a social contract. When that's not enough, she threatens to leave him, so Bud reluctantly agrees and promises to see her at the polling station after work. The scene changes to Bud working at a local egg processing plant, Gilmore Eggs, where he finds out that Dewey, Bud's close friend, has been laid off. Meanwhile, President Andrew Boone, one of the two main candidates in the presidential election, is at his office with his campaign manager, Martin Fox, who is the brains behind President Boone's re-election campaign, responsible for devising tactics and managing the campaign team. On the other hand, Art Crum is the campaign manager for Donald Greenleaf, the Democratic candidate running against President Andrew Boone. Art Crum is a highly skilled and experienced political strategist who is responsible for devising the overall campaign strategy. Later, in Mrs. Abernathy's class, several students are being videotaped sharing their points of view on why voting is important. When it's Molly's turn, she explains how voting allows individuals to have a say in shaping the future of their communities and their country. She also highlights the historical struggles for voting rights and the sacrifices made by those who fought for universal suffrage. News reporter Kate Madison is clearly impressed by Molly's words and asks Mrs. Abernathy to let her broadcast Molly's essay on the news. When asked what she wants to be when she grows up, Molly reveals that she's either going to be a veterinarian or the chairman of the Fed. Once again, Kate Madison is impressed by her words. Back at Gilmore Eggs, Bud gets fired from his job because of his habitual lateness, drinking problems, and poor performance at work. He ends up at a bar, forgetting that he's supposed to meet Molly, who is desperately waiting for him at the polling station. That's when he unexpectedly finds Molly being interviewed by Kate Madison, a local television journalist, about the election, and realizes he was supposed to meet his daughter. Tumbling around, he somehow makes it to his truck and drives to the polling place as quickly as possible. Equally angry and saddened, Molly sits there with tears in her eyes, waiting for Bud to arrive. Finally, she decides to secretly vote on his behalf. Before she can select a candidate, the voting machine malfunctions, leaving the ballot inside. Molly takes the stub and leaves to avoid getting caught. Outside the polling station, she finds Bud passed out in his truck and drives them home. After putting him to bed, she tells Bud that she wants to live with her mother, to which he replies, "Me too," in a drunken state. Next, Kate Madison receives a call from the New Mexico Election Board asking if she cast her vote late last night. Apparently, they have been calling around to find out if people voted late at night. That's when a news flash reveals that whoever manages to win in New Mexico takes the White House. However, if there's a certified tie, neither of the candidates would receive the majority, and according to the 12th Amendment, the House of Representatives would decide. Apparently, this hasn't happened since John Quincy Adams defeated Andrew Jackson back in 1824, and the media believes that anyone in New Mexico who didn't cast their vote must be kicking themselves right now. Another news flash reveals that the election is down to a single county, Curry County, New Mexico. Kate Madison, who is out in the streets, notices several cars and decides to follow them. Just then, a few officials show up at Bud's trailer to meet him. Assuming they're from child services, Bud attempts to convince them not to take Molly away by claiming that he will mend his ways, get a new job, and pay all the bills. At one point, he starts begging them not to take Molly away, only to find out that the officials are not from social services. It turns out they are from the State Election Bureau. The Secretary of State, Brower, and Attorney General Wyatt ask if Bud cast his vote last night. Hesitant, Bud agrees when Molly kisses him on the cheek. After verifying his signature, they ask him about the perforated stub. Bud appears clueless at first, but then asks Molly about the stub he gave her for her school project, and she quickly retrieves it. Just then, it is revealed that Bud's vote didn't count, and that they're there to inform him that he's entitled to recast his ballot in a timely manner. However, Bud doesn't seem to be taking things seriously, prompting the attorney to caution him that there are strict rules and legal procedures that need to be followed. Bud fumbles, saying that he cannot afford a lawyer, after which he is told that he is not in trouble. He just needs to cast his vote again, but first, they will have to administer an oath. Surprised, Bud places his hand on the Bible and swears to recast his ballot in the spirit of the law. The officials leave after telling him that a petition will be filed on his behalf and a date will be set for his revote. After they leave, Bud yells at Molly for getting him into trouble, like with jury duty, and the two get into an argument. The next day, the malfunctioning voting machine and the revelation that Bud's vote is the deciding factor in the presidential election triggered a media frenzy. People are shocked to find out that one voter will effectively choose the next president of the United States. This makes the campaign managers for both Andrew Boone and Donald Greenleaf desperate to find the man. Meanwhile, unaware of the whole situation, Bud and Molly are out fishing near a lake. While Molly thinks that it's a waste of time, Bud claims he's doing it to spend some quality time with his daughter. Missing her mom, Molly mentions that it's Bring Your Dad to Work Day next Tuesday, and that she wants him to come. Bud claims he might embarrass her since he doesn't even have a job, but Molly couldn't care less. Bud agrees and promises to remember it. After this, Bud drives Molly to school and heads home. Just then, Kate Madison shows up outside Bud's house, knowing he's the voter effectively choosing the next president. She asks Bud why those men came to see him in the middle of the night, but Bud refuses to tell her, claiming that it's a secret. However, since Kate is aware of the situation, she asks Bud who he's going to vote for, and presents Bud's statement in a way that suggests he's keeping an open mind, despite knowing that Bud knows nothing. She breaks this news to John Sweeney, her boss and the owner of the channel, who then assigns Kate to cover the story of Bud Johnson's pivotal vote. As the voter's identity is revealed, news reporters and camera crews converge on Bud's house, eager to cover the story and capture footage of the key player in this political drama. In a chaotic and crowded scene outside Bud's house, reporters set up cameras, microphones, and lights, while bystanders gather to watch. Shocked by all this, Bud and Molly hide inside their trailer. Meanwhile, the news broadcast shows that Bud did make an appearance a few minutes ago, but got overwhelmed and left the scene. The channel then shows interviews with different people, asking what kind of man Bud is, and if he's actually capable of electing the next president. Seeing all this, Bud loses his mind and decides to come clean. Just then, Molly stops him and reminds him that child services will take her away if they find out Bud committed voter fraud. The father-daughter duo decides to lie and make the reporters go away. A lot of hustle and bustle starts happening, with helicopters and television production trucks coming into the small town. Reporters from the New York Times, Fox News, and CNN are eager to talk to Bud. Soon enough, the two presidential candidates, Andrew Boone and Donald Greenleaf, arrive at the scene. Donald Greenleaf appears to be rather stressed about building a campaign around one man, but his manager reassures him and tells him not to worry. However, in reality, he has no idea what he's going to do, so he asks his team to dig up dirt on Bud. On the other hand, President Andrew Boone and his manager are taking a more positive approach to win his vote, as Boone wants to meet Bud for ice cream. The next day, Secretary of State Brower and Attorney General Wyatt show up at Bud's trailer again to talk to him about some legal matters. Before they do, Bud asks them if they can back up the news reporters causing a fuss in front of his house. After that, they tell Bud that he is authorized to recast his vote 10 days from today. They also tell him that he's going to need security 24/7 since every political leader in the country will want to meet him, and it's their job to make sure Bud's decision is fair and square. Meanwhile, Kate Madison finds out that Molly, the essay girl, is actually Bud's daughter. John insists on interviewing her, but Kate claims she's not going to use the little girl. However, John forces her to forget her integrity and do what she's being told. Martin Fox has never lost an election before and hopes to continue his winning streak. Meanwhile, Art Crumb has never won an election and is determined not to lose another one. The rivalry between the two main presidential candidates continues as their respective campaign teams mobilize supporters and deploy strategies to gain Bud's vote, even to the point of interviewing the pizza delivery boy who had just delivered pizza to Bud's trailer. Moments later, Richard Petty, a legendary NASCAR driver, makes an appearance at Bud's trailer. It turns out Martin has sent Richard to drive Bud and Molly to Air Force One for a personal meeting with President Boone. On their way to the meeting, Bud is thrilled to drive Richard's Dodge Charger and asks Molly to take a lot of pictures of him. Bud feels like a hero, and the entire experience feels surreal once they see the president's airplane. Bud and Molly are warmly welcomed by Martin, after which they meet Boone. They insist on keeping Molly away while Boone talks to Bud. Boone offers Bud a beer and engages in small talk with him, while Molly chats with Martin. She tells him how she has read in the paper that he has never lost an election before, and that he will do anything to not lose this one, even if it means selling his mother's soul. However, he completely denies the claims. Meanwhile, President Boone emphasizes the significance of Bud's vote in determining the direction of the country and the policies that will affect the lives of millions of Americans. As Bud is driving home after a meeting with Boone, Molly asks him what they talked about. Bud has no clue, but he reveals that he is planning on voting for Boone. He also mentions that Boone has invited him to watch a game, but Molly knows it's a bribe and asks Bud not to accept it. While they are talking, Bud notices a video featuring Willie Nelson, a celebrity he dearly admires, who happens to be Greenleaf's buddy. Bud receives a personal invitation from the video to a great party that Crumb and Greenleaf have planned especially for him. Once again, Molly and Bud receive a warm welcome from Greenleaf's campaign manager. Although Molly seems to be in a bad mood, Bud tells her to enjoy herself. They prepare a lavish buffet with Bud's face on several dishes. To facilitate another musical performance, Greenleaf's campaign even managed to secure the parole of one of Bud's former bandmates. Molly is sickened by the posturing on both sides. Kate wants to talk to Bud only because her boss, John, tells her to. When she interviews Bud, the media misunderstands what he really believes. This causes the candidates to change their views on some topics. Greenleaf's campaign makes ads just for Bud, focusing on issues like illegal immigration and abortion. Boone's campaign supports gay marriage and protecting the environment. Boone ignores Fox's plan to offer Bud a lobbying job as a bribe, and Greenleaf reconciles with his wife. However, Bud disappoints Molly even more by forgetting to attend Bring Your Dad to Work Day at her school. Fed up with his constant neglect, Molly decides to leave and asks a friend to drive her to her mother's house, hoping to live with her instead. Unfortunately, her mother, Larissa Starr, is revealed to be struggling with a prescription drug addiction and is not capable of caring for her. Larissa reacts angrily to Molly's arrival, making it clear she doesn't want her there. Thankfully, Bud, remembering their previous conversation and guessing where Molly would go, arrives just in time to comfort his heartbroken daughter. In a touching moment, Molly calls him Dad for the first time. Bud then takes Molly back home, surrounded by a crowd of journalists. The experience serves as a wake-up call for Bud, who stops drinking and starts working diligently with Kate and Molly to seriously understand the issues of the election so he can make the right choice. As Bud prepares for the presidential debate the following day, he looks through his mail and sees letters from the public urging him to vote on important issues. With the entire country watching, Bud serves as a moderator for a debate between the two presidential candidates, posing questions derived from the letters he received. The nation remains astonished at how an entire country's fate rests on one person's vote. In a written speech, He confesses that he knows little to nothing about politics or life. Bud further states, "If America has a true enemy tonight, I guess it's me." After his moving speech, Bud asks security agents to bring out the bags of letters he received from the public. He reads some of the questions out loud, shedding light on the concerns of ordinary people and stressing the importance of their voices. The next morning, Bud finally casts his vote as Molly watches with a smile on her face, though for whom he voted is never revealed. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more videos.